The alarm screamed inside the small ship. Red lights flashed everywhere. Hana gripped the controls with both hands as the vessel shook violently. Something had hit her from behind, something big. System failure, hull breach detected, life support at 30%. The computer voice announced calmly, as if it was not describing a disaster. Hana cursed under her breath. She was supposed to be on a simple supply run to the mining outpost on Sector 7. Nothing dangerous, nothing complicated. Just drop off medical supplies and food, then return to the main station. But someone had other plans. The ship rattled again. Another hit. Through the viewport, she saw 3 enemy fighters circling like sharks. Pirates, most likely. They wanted her cargo, or maybe just enjoyed hunting lone travelers. Not today, Hana muttered. She pushed the throttle forward and dove toward the planet below. It was a dangerous move. The planet was marked as hostile territory. No human settlements, no rescue stations, just wilderness and whatever creatures lived there. But staying in space meant certain death. At least on the planet she had a chance. The ship screamed as it entered the atmosphere. The hull was already damaged, and now the heat from entry made everything worse. Metal groaned. Panels sparked. The computer stopped talking, which was never a good sign. Hana fought with the controls, trying to keep the nose up, trying to aim for something flat. Through the smoke and flames, she saw purple trees and dark rocky mountains. The ground rushed up fast, too fast. The impact threw her forward against the safety harness. Her head cracked against something hard. Pain exploded behind her eyes. The world spun. Metal screamed as the ship tore through earth and rock, carving a deep trench before finally stopping. Everything went quiet except for the hiss of escaping air and the crackle of small fires. Hana hung in her seat, held by the harness. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. Her left arm throbbed with deep pain. When she looked down, she saw a piece of metal sticking through her flight suit, buried in her shoulder. She felt sick looking at it. "Get up," she told herself. "Get up, or die here." She fumbled with the harness release. It took 3 tries with her shaking right hand. When it clicked open, she fell hard onto what used to be the side wall. The ship had landed on its side. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through her body. The emergency kit. She needed the emergency kit. It was mounted near the door, or at least it used to be. Hana crawled through the wreckage, pushing aside broken equipment and sparking wires. Her shoulder screamed with every movement, but she kept going. She found the kit partially crushed under a collapsed panel. Inside, most items were intact. Medical supplies, water packets, an emergency beacon, and a small plasma pistol with 1 charge pack. Not much, but better than nothing. Hana activated the beacon and clipped it to her belt. Then she stuck a pain patch on her neck. Within seconds, the worst of the agony dulled to a manageable ache. She knew she should remove the metal from her shoulder, but not here. Not without proper tools and a clean space. The ship groaned around her. Smoke was getting thicker. She needed to leave before something exploded or the whole thing collapsed further. Getting out took forever. The exit hatch was jammed. She had to squeeze through a crack in the hull, dragging the emergency kit behind her. Every movement was torture. The pain patch helped, but her body knew it was badly hurt. Outside, the air was thin but breathable. The sky was a strange orange color with 2 small suns setting on the horizon. Purple vegetation covered the landscape, and dark rocks jutted up like broken teeth. In the distance, she heard sounds, animal sounds, howls and roars that made her skin crawl. She needed shelter, somewhere to hide while the beacon called for help. If help could even find her on this forbidden planet. Hana spotted a dark opening in the rocks about 50 meters away. A cave, maybe. It would have to do. She stumbled toward it, leaving a trail of blood drops on the purple grass. The cave entrance was narrow, but she squeezed through. Inside, it opened into a larger space. The floor was covered with soft, moss-like plants. It smelled like earth and something else, something animal. She should have been more careful, should have checked if anything lived here, but her body was failing. The pain patch was wearing off. Her vision blurred at the edges. Hana collapsed onto the soft moss. She managed to pull out the medical supplies and treat her smaller cuts. The shoulder wound was beyond her ability to fix here. She covered it with a pressure bandage and hoped it would be enough. The emergency beacon blinked on her belt. Someone would see it. Eventually, she just needed to stay alive until then. As darkness crept into her vision, Hana heard something. Soft footsteps. Not human footsteps. Something with claws clicking on stone. More than one set. Coming closer. Her hand reached for the plasma pistol, but her fingers would not close around it. Too weak. Too tired. The footsteps stopped near the cave entrance. Hana tried to turn her head, tried to see what was there, but her body would not obey. Through half-closed eyes, she saw shapes, low to the ground, moving together. Then everything went black. When consciousness flickered back, Hana felt warmth. Not the cold of the cave floor, but living warmth. Something was pressed against her back. Something was curled near her stomach. Her hand touched fur, thick, coarse fur. She should be afraid, should be screaming. But the darkness pulled her down again before she could react. The last thing she registered was a sound, a soft rumbling sound, almost like purring, surrounding her in the darkness of the cave. Hana woke to the feeling of something wet on her face. A rough tongue dragged across her cheek. Her eyes snapped open. 3 pairs of eyes stared back at her. Large eyes, golden in color with vertical slits for pupils. They belonged to creatures about the size of large dogs, covered in dark fur with silver stripes running along their sides. Their faces were angular, almost cat-like, but their jaws were heavier, filled with teeth designed for tearing meat. Predators. Young ones, but still dangerous. Hana's breath caught in her throat. She tried to move back, but pain lanced through her shoulder. The movement made her gasp. The 3 cubs tilted their heads in unison, watching her. The largest one, the one who had licked her face, made a soft, chirping sound. Not aggressive. Almost curious. Her plasma pistol was somewhere in the emergency kit, out of reach. Even if she could get to it, the single charge might take down 1 cub, but not all 3. And shooting them felt wrong somehow. They were not attacking, just watching. "Easy," Hana whispered, her voice rough. "I'm not going to hurt you." The largest cub moved closer. Hana tensed, but the creature simply pressed its nose against her injured shoulder and sniffed. It made a low whining sound, then looked at the other 2. Some kind of communication passed between them. The smallest cub suddenly turned and bounded toward the cave entrance. Hana's heart raced. Was it going to bring back adults? She had heard stories about the predators on hostile worlds. Creatures that hunted in packs. Creatures that could tear through metal. But the cub returned moments later with something in its mouth. A container. One of the water packets from her emergency kit, which had spilled open when she collapsed. The cub dropped it near her good hand. Hana stared at the packet, then at the cub. "You brought me water?" The cub sat down and watched her with those golden eyes, waiting. With trembling fingers, Hana picked up the packet and tore it open with her teeth. The water was warm and tasted like plastic, but it was the most wonderful thing she had ever drunk. She had not realized how thirsty she was. The 3 cubs watched her drink. When she finished, the middle-sized one moved closer and curled up against her legs. Its body heat seeped through her torn flight suit. The smallest did the same on her other side. The largest cub positioned itself near the cave entrance, its back to her, facing outward, like a guard. Hana's mind struggled to make sense of it. These were predators. Young, but still predators. They should see her as prey or threat, not something to protect and bring water to. But as the warmth from their bodies eased the chill in her bones, She decided not to question it. Not yet. She was alive. That was what mattered. Hours passed. The orange sky outside darkened to purple, then to black. Strange sounds echoed through the night. Howls and screams from creatures hunting or being hunted. Every time something loud came too close, the largest cub would rise and move to the entrance, making a low, growling sound deep in its chest. The sound was surprisingly fierce for such a young creature. And every time, whatever was outside moved away. The cubs took turns keeping watch. While one guarded, the other two stayed pressed against Hana, keeping her warm. They seemed to have assigned themselves this task without anyone asking. Hana dozed on and off, never fully sleeping. The pain in her shoulder was constant despite the medical supplies. The bandage was soaked through with blood. She needed real medical attention, surgery probably, antibiotics, things she did not have in a cave on a hostile planet. When dim light began filtering into the cave at dawn, the smallest cub suddenly jumped up and ran outside. Hana's hand instinctively reached for her pistol, which she had managed to retrieve during the night. But again, the cub returned with something in its mouth. This time, it was not water. It was meat. The creature dropped a chunk of fresh flesh near her, still warm. It had been torn from something recently killed. The cub looked at her expectantly. "I can't eat that raw," Hana said weakly. "Humans need to cook meat, fire." The cub tilted its head. Obviously, it did not understand her words, but it seemed to sense her refusal. It picked up the meat and carried it outside. Minutes later, the largest cub appeared with something different. A round, purple fruit about the size of her fist. It placed the fruit in her lap, then stepped back. Hana picked up the fruit carefully. It was soft, similar to a peach. She had no idea if it was safe for humans to eat, but she was so hungry, and thirsty, and weak. She took a small bite. The fruit was sweet and juicy. The juice ran down her chin. She waited a few seconds, checking for any immediate reaction. Nothing bad happened. She took another bite, then another, until the whole fruit was gone. The cubs made that soft chirping sound again. Happy sounds. Over the next 2 days, the pattern continued. The cubs brought her fruits, roots, and even insects that looked edible. They brought water from a stream somewhere outside. They kept her warm at night and guarded the cave entrance during the day. Hana tried to move around, to exercise her legs, but the shoulder wound was getting worse. Infection was setting in despite the antibiotics from the emergency kit. She could feel fever building in her body. Her thoughts became fuzzy at times. The cubs seemed to sense her declining health. They stayed closer, rarely all leaving at once. They licked her hands and face, making those worried whining sounds. On the third night, Hana's fever spiked. She shivered uncontrollably despite the warmth of the cubs pressed against her. Her vision swam with hallucinations. She saw her family back on Earth, saw her crew members from her last posting, saw faces of people she had lost. Through the fever dreams, she felt the cubs moving around her, felt them pressing closer, heard them making distressed sounds. One of them howled, a long, lonely sound that echoed through the cave and out into the night. In her delirium, Hana thought it sounded like a cry for help. The largest cub licked her face repeatedly, as if trying to wake her from the fever. The smallest one had curled up against her chest, its head resting over her heart. They were not going to let her die. These strange, impossible creatures had decided she was theirs to protect. Part of their pack, their family. Hana's hand found its way to the soft fur of the cub on her chest. She stroked it weakly. "Good kids," she whispered through cracked lips. "You're such good kids." The cub made a soft rumbling sound, that almost purr she had heard before. Outside, the night continued with its chorus of alien sounds, but inside the cave, 3 young predators kept watch over their adopted human, determined that nothing would take her from them. As dawn approached, the howling cub suddenly stopped and raised its head, ears pointed forward. It had heard something the fevered human could not detect. All three cubs moved to the cave entrance, standing side by side. Their bodies tensed. Their tails went rigid. Someone was coming. Commander Tay studied the holographic display floating above his wrist. 3 days. The human vessel had been missing for 3 days. In his experience, that usually meant the pilot was dead. But humans were surprisingly resilient. He had learned that during the brief alliance talks last year. They were fragile compared to his people, the Vexians, but they had a stubborn refusal to die that bordered on irrational. "Sir, we have located the crash site," his second officer, Wu, reported. The younger Vexian pointed toward a rocky ridge in the distance. "Energy readings match a human supply ship, Class C transport." "Survivors?" Tay asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Unknown. The wreckage is in hunting grounds territory. The sensors cannot penetrate that deep into the valley." Tay felt his jaw tighten. The hunting grounds. Of course it would be there. The most dangerous area on this entire planet, where the strongest predators lived and bred, where even Vexian warriors thought twice before entering. His people had evolved on this world. They knew its dangers intimately. The humans were newcomers to this sector, still learning which planets to avoid. "Prepare the squad," Tay ordered. "Full weapons and armor. If there is a survivor, we need to find them before the nocturnal hunters wake." 6 Vexian warriors assembled quickly. They were elite guards, the best his station had. Each stood over 2 meters tall, their bodies covered in natural armor plates that could deflect most small arms fire. Their claws could tear through steel. Their jaws could crush bone. But even they respected the creatures that lived in the hunting grounds. The team moved swiftly across the purple landscape. Tay had grown up on this planet. He knew every rock, every plant, every animal sound. The hunting grounds were forbidden to civilians for good reason. The predators here were apex hunters, intelligent enough to coordinate attacks, strong enough to kill even adult Vexians. And their young were only slightly less dangerous. "Commander," Wu said quietly, pointing to the ground. "Blood trail. Recent. Human, judging by the color." Tay knelt and examined the dark red drops on the purple grass. His people had blue blood. This was definitely from the human. The trail led away from the crash site toward a rocky outcrop. "She survived the crash," one warrior observed. "That is impressive." "Following the trail," Tay ordered, rising. "Stay alert. We are deep in predator territory." They moved cautiously, following the blood drops. Tay noted signs all around them, claw marks on rocks, bones scattered in the grass. This area was heavily hunted. Whatever creatures lived here were active and successful. The blood trail led to a narrow cave entrance. Tay felt his instincts screaming at him to be careful. Caves in this region were often dens. The predators raised their young in places like this. "Sir," one of his warriors said nervously, "this cave shows signs of occupation. Fresh claw marks. Recent prey remains. Something lives here." "And the human's blood leads directly inside," Wu added. Tay considered their options. The human might be dead, killed by whatever lived in this cave, or she might be wounded inside, unable to escape. Either way, they needed to know. "Weapons ready," he commanded. "We go in slowly. If you see movement, identify before firing. The human may still be alive." The team approached the cave entrance. It was narrow, forcing them to go single file. Tay went first. It was his responsibility, his mission. Inside, the cave opened into a larger chamber. His eyes, designed for low light, adjusted immediately. He could see moss on the floor, some medical supplies scattered around, and the remains of a small fire that had burned out, and 3 shapes between him and the back of the cave. Tay froze. His hand went up, signaling his team to stop. The shapes were cubs, young predators, probably 8 or 9 months old, still juveniles but large enough to be dangerous. Their dark fur blended with the shadows, but their golden eyes reflected the dim light from outside. "Veka cubs," Wu whispered behind him. "Sir, this is their den." Veka. The most dangerous predators on the planet. Adults could kill a fully armed Vexian warrior in seconds. The cubs were smaller, but they hunted in packs and their teeth were already fully developed, and these three stood in a defensive line, blocking access to the back of the cave. Their bodies were tense, their ears flat against their heads. Low growls rumbled from their chests. They were protecting something. Tay's eyes narrowed. He activated a thermal scanner on his helmet. Through the cubs, he could see a heat signature, human-sized, lying on the moss, still alive, but the signature was weak and fluctuating. "The human is behind them," he reported quietly to his team. "She is alive." "We can stun the cubs," Wu suggested. "Clear a path." "No," Tay said firmly. "Look at their posture. They are not hunting. They are defending." One of the warriors shifted his weight, and immediately the largest cub's growl deepened. It took a step forward, placing itself directly between the warriors and the human behind it. Tay had studied animal behavior extensively. He had grown up observing the creatures of this planet. What he was seeing now should be impossible. Veka cubs did not protect other species. They barely tolerated their own siblings. They were born hunters, taught to see all non-Veka as either prey or threat. Yet these three stood united, defending a human, an alien creature that smelled wrong, looked wrong, made sounds they could not understand. "Sir?" Wu prompted. "Orders?" Tay thought carefully. If they attacked the cubs even with stun weapons, the cubs might kill the human in their panic. Or the noise might attract adult Veka from the surrounding area. Adult Veka would kill everyone in this cave, but if they did nothing, the human would die from her wounds. The thermal scan showed clear signs of infection and fever. "Lower your weapons," Tay ordered. "Sir," several warriors said in unison. "Lower them, now." The team obeyed, though Tay could sense their confusion and fear. He took a step forward, his hands visible and empty. The cub's growling intensified. Tay dropped to one knee, making himself smaller, less threatening. He had done this before with wild animals, showing submission, showing peaceful intent. The cubs watched him closely but did not attack. "I understand," Tay said softly, even though he knew they could not understand his words. "You are protecting her. She is yours. Part of your pack." The largest cub tilted its head slightly, still growling but listening. "We want to help her," Tay continued in that same soft voice. "She is sick, dying. We can save her, but only if you let us." He slowly reached to his belt and removed a medical scanner. The cubs tensed, ready to attack. Tay kept his movements slow and deliberate. He activated the scanner and pointed it toward the human, not at the cubs. The device beeped softly. The readings appeared on his helmet display. Severe infection, blood loss, dehydration. The human needed immediate surgery and intensive care. "Look," Tay said, showing the scanner to the cubs as if they could read it. "She needs help. Let us help." The cubs exchanged glances. Some kind of communication passed between them. The smallest one chirped uncertainly. Then the largest cub did something unexpected. It stepped aside. Just one step, but it opened a narrow path. "Slowly," Tay told his team. "Move very slowly." He approached carefully, watching the cubs. They watched him back, every muscle ready to attack if he made one wrong move. But they did not attack. They let him pass. Behind them, Tay found the human woman. She was young, mid-20s perhaps. Her face was pale and covered in sweat. Her flight suit was torn and bloody. A crude bandage covered her shoulder, but it was soaked through. The emergency beacon on her belt still blinked weakly. Tay knelt beside her and ran a proper medical scan. Worse than he thought. She needed surgery within hours, or she would die. "We need to move her," he said. "Prepare the medical pod." As his team moved forward, the cubs suddenly blocked them again, growling fiercely. The smallest cub climbed onto the human's chest, placing itself directly over her heart. The other two flanked her body. They were not going to let anyone take her. Tay found himself in an impossible situation. 6 armed warriors, elite soldiers trained for combat, blocked by 3 young predators who refused to let them save the very person they were protecting. The irony was not lost on him. "Sir, we could use the neural disruptors," Wu suggested quietly. "They would knock the cubs unconscious without permanent harm." "And traumatize them," Tay replied. "They have bonded with her. If we hurt them, even temporarily, she would never forgive us, assuming she survives." "She will not survive if we cannot treat her," another warrior pointed out. Tay knew this was true. The human's vital signs were deteriorating. Another hour, maybe 2, and she would be beyond saving. But looking at those 3 cubs, so fierce in their protection, so determined to guard this strange alien creature, he could not bring himself to use force. There had to be another way. He studied the cubs carefully. The largest one, clearly the pack leader despite being young, watched him with intelligent eyes. It had moved aside once before, allowed him to approach. That showed reasoning ability beyond simple instinct. "Wu," Tay said. "Do we have any food in the supplies? Meat?" "Yes, sir. Emergency rations. Preserved Nika strips." "Bring them." Wu looked confused but obeyed. He retrieved a package from his belt and handed it to Tay. The commander opened it carefully. The smell of processed meat filled the cave. All 3 cubs' noses twitched. Their ears perked up slightly. Tay broke off a piece and tossed it gently to the smallest cub. It caught the meat in midair and swallowed it without chewing. Its eyes brightened. "Hungry, are you?" Tay said softly. He tossed pieces to the other 2 cubs. They ate eagerly. While they were distracted, he moved a bit closer to the human. The largest cub immediately blocked him, growling. But its tail was no longer rigid. The growl was less intense. "I know," Tay said. "I know you are protecting her. You are doing a good job. But look at her. She is dying. Do you understand? Dying." He pointed to the medical scanner readings, to the human's pale face, to her shallow breathing. The cub looked where he pointed, then back at him. "We can save her," Tay continued. "But only if you trust us." "Trust me." He held out another piece of meat. The cub took it from his hand this time, its warm breath on his palm. Up close, Tay could see the creature better. Young, yes, but powerfully built. Its teeth could easily tear through his hand if it chose. But it did not. It ate the meat gently and waited. Tay slowly reached toward the human. The cub tensed, but did not stop him. He touched her forehead, burning with fever. Her skin was dry and hot. "See?" he said to the cub. "She is very sick. We need to take her to our medical facility. We have machines that can heal her, medicine that can fight the infection, but she cannot stay here." The cub made a soft, whining sound. It looked at the human, then back at Tay. Something flickered in those golden eyes. Understanding, hope, fear. "I promise," Tay said, and he realized he meant it. "I promise we will take care of her. She will be safe. You have my word." He placed his hand over his chest, a Vexian gesture of solemn oath. The cub watched this carefully. Then it did something that made every warrior in the cave freeze. The cub placed its paw on Tay's hand, pressing down gently, accepting the promise. "By the ancestors," Wu breathed. "It understands." Tay felt something shift in his chest. This was not just a predator. This was an intelligent being, capable of complex emotions and decisions, and it had chosen to trust him. "Medical team," Tay said quietly. "Move in slowly. The cubs are allowing us to help." The warriors approached carefully. They unpacked the medical pod, a portable stasis unit that would stabilize the human for transport. But as they moved the equipment closer, the smallest cub began to panic. It chirped desperately and tried to stay on the human's chest. "Wait," Tay ordered. He turned to the smallest cub. "She is not leaving you. You can come with us, all of you." The warriors stared at him. "Sir," Wu said, "we cannot bring Veka cubs to the station. It violates at least 12 regulations." "Then we will violate 12 regulations," Tay said firmly. "They are a family now. We do not separate families." He gently picked up the smallest cub. It struggled at first, but Tay held it close to the human, letting it see that she was still there. The cub gradually calmed, though it continued to make worried sounds. The medical team worked quickly. They carefully lifted the human into the stasis pod. Her vital signs immediately stabilized as the unit flooded her system with emergency medication and oxygen. The wound on her shoulder was covered with a bioseal. The two other cubs watched anxiously. The largest one paced back and forth, clearly distressed. "We need a transport container for the cubs," Tay said. "Something open where they can see her." "Sir, we do not have—" "Then improvise." The warriors scrambled. They found a cargo net and fashioned a sort of carrier that could hold the three cubs while still allowing them to see the medical pod. It was crude, but it would work. Loading the cubs was another challenge. They did not want to be separated from the human, even by a few meters. Tay had to personally guide each one into the carrier, speaking softly, showing them that the human was right there, just on the other side of the transparent pod. Finally, everything was ready. The human was stable in the pod. The three cubs were secured but could see her clearly. The team prepared to move out. But as they neared the cave entrance, they heard sounds outside. Deep, rumbling growls. Adult sounds. Tay's blood ran cold. He signaled his team to stop and activated his external sensors. 3 large heat signatures outside, much larger than the cubs, moving toward the cave entrance. Adult Veka, probably the cubs' parents. "Defensive positions," Tay ordered quietly. "But do not fire unless attacked. The cubs' parents may just be checking on their young." The warriors formed a protective circle around the medical pod and the carrier. Their weapons were ready but not aimed. The growling outside grew louder. Then shadows appeared at the cave entrance. 3 massive shapes, each the size of a small vehicle. Their fur was darker than the cubs', marked with scars from years of hunting. Their eyes glowed in the dim light. The largest adult stepped into the cave. It was enormous, its head nearly touching the ceiling. Muscles rippled under its fur. Claws scraped against stone with each step. It looked at the Vexian warriors, then at the cubs in the carrier, then at the medical pod containing the human. The adult's lips pulled back, revealing teeth the size of daggers. A growl that shook the cave walls emerged from its throat. The 3 cubs in the carrier suddenly began making loud chirping sounds, calling to the adult, explaining in whatever way they communicated what had happened. The adult listened, its eyes fixed on Tay. For a long moment, nothing moved. The tension in the cave was suffocating. One wrong move, and this would become a bloodbath. Tay slowly lowered his weapon and placed it on the ground. Then he stood up straight and met the adult Veka's gaze. "Your children protected her," he said calmly. "They saved her life. Now we are trying to save her life too. We are not enemies here." The adult tilted its massive head, still growling, but softer now, considering. Then it stepped aside. The path to the cave entrance was clear. "Move," Tay ordered his team. "Slowly and respectfully." The warriors carried the medical pod and the cub's carrier toward the exit. As they passed the adult Veka, it fell into step behind them, following. The other two adults outside also joined the procession. 3 adult Veka, 6 Vexian warriors, 3 cubs, and 1 dying human, all moving together through the hunting grounds. It was the strangest sight Tay had ever been part of. And the most important, because somewhere in this cave with those cubs, something impossible had happened. A bond had formed across species. A bridge had been built between creatures that should have been enemies. And Tay realized that humans had something his people had forgotten in their centuries of military discipline and rigid hierarchy. Humans had the ability to connect, to be adopted, to become family with those who were nothing like them. It was a gift, a dangerous, powerful, beautiful gift, and it was going to change everything. The medical facility on the Vexian station had never seen anything like it. The surgery room was standard, equipped with the latest medical technology. But outside the observation window stood 3 Veka cubs, their paws pressed against the glass, watching every movement inside with intense focus. And in the corridor beyond, 3 adult Veka lay waiting. The station's security team had nearly started a shooting war when the adults followed Tay's team through the landing bay. Only his direct order and the strange, calm behavior of the predators prevented disaster. Tay stood in the observation room with the cubs. He had not left them since they arrived. Something about their trust felt sacred. Breaking it would be a betrayal he could not commit. "Surgery is progressing well," the medical officer reported through the intercom. "The infection was severe, but we caught it in time. She will recover fully." The largest cub made a soft chirping sound, as if it understood. Maybe it did. "How long until she wakes?" Tay asked. "Several hours. We need to keep her sedated while the tissue regeneration completes." The shoulder damage was extensive. Tay relayed this to the cubs in a soft voice, knowing they could not understand his words, but hoping they would sense his meaning. The smallest one pressed its nose against the glass, leaving a smudge mark. Behind him, the door opened. General Rena entered, the station's commanding officer. She was old, scarred from decades of service, and not easily impressed. Her expression was carefully neutral as she surveyed the scene. "Commander Tay," she said formally, "this is highly irregular." "Yes, ma'am." "You brought predators onto a military station. Apex predators, adults and cubs." "Yes, ma'am." "You violated quarantine protocols, animal control regulations, and safety procedures." "Yes, ma'am." General Rena walked to the window and looked at the human woman on the operating table. Then she looked at the cubs watching so intently. "Tell me why I should not have you arrested," she said quietly. Tay chose his words carefully. "Because something important happened in that cave, General. Something that could change our relationship with humans, with all species." "Explain." Tay gestured to the cubs. These young predators found a wounded alien. By all natural law, they should have either eaten her or left her to die. Instead, they protected her, fed her, kept her warm, defended her from other predators. They adopted her into their pack. An anomaly. Animals sometimes behave unpredictably. No, ma'am. This was not unpredictable behavior. This was deliberate choice. They assessed her as non-threatening, recognized her need for help, and decided to provide it. That requires intelligence, empathy, and social reasoning we have never attributed to Veka. General Rena frowned. Or the cubs were simply confused. "The adults were not confused," Tay countered. "They understood what their cubs had done, and they approved. They followed us here. They are waiting outside to ensure she survives. That is not confusion. That is acknowledgement of a bond." The general was silent for a long moment. One of the cubs, the middle-sized one, turned and looked directly at her. Its golden eyes were clear and intelligent. "What are you proposing, Commander?" Rena asked. I am proposing that humans have an ability we need to understand, an ability to form connections across species barriers, to inspire loyalty and protection from creatures that should see them as prey. If we study this, if we learn from it, it could revolutionize our diplomatic efforts. Or it could be nothing more than one woman's luck with 3 confused cubs. Then let us test it, Tay said. Let the human recover. Let her interact with the cubs. Observe what happens. If I am wrong, we return the cubs to the wild and send the human home. But if I am right, if there is something genuine here, something we can learn, General, think of the possibilities. Rena turned back to the window. The surgery was nearly complete. The medical team was closing the final incisions. The human woman looked peaceful, her face no longer twisted in pain. The human's name is Hana, Rena said quietly. Lieutenant Hana, 26 years old, Supply Corps, no combat training, no special qualifications, just a transport pilot who got unlucky. Or very lucky, Tay suggested. Depending on perspective. When she wakes, she will be terrified. She will see Vexian soldiers, alien medical equipment, and 3 predators staring at her. That is not a gentle awakening. The cubs should be in the room when she wakes, Tay said. They are what she knows, what she trusts. Their presence will calm her. You are asking me to put predators in a recovery room with an injured patient. I am asking you to reunite a family. General Rena made a sound that might have been a laugh or a grunt. You are either brilliant or insane, Commander. I have not decided which. She walked to the door, then paused. The cubs can be present when she wakes, under guard, any sign of aggression, and they are removed immediately. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. After the general left, Tay sat down on the floor with the cubs. They immediately surrounded him, seeking warmth and comfort. He stroked their fur gently, feeling the trust they had placed in him. Hours passed. The surgery completed successfully. Hana was moved to a recovery room with a large window and comfortable bedding. The 3 cubs were brought inside and immediately climbed onto the bed, arranging themselves around her just as they had in the cave. Tay sat in a chair nearby, watching, waiting. When Hana finally opened her eyes, she looked confused, disoriented. Her gaze wandered around the unfamiliar room, seeing the medical equipment, the strange walls, the window showing a view of space. Then she felt the weight on the bed, felt the warmth. She looked down and saw 3 dark shapes pressed against her. "Hey," she whispered, her voice rough. Her hand moved to stroke the nearest cub. "You are still here." The smallest cub chirped happily and licked her hand. The largest one raised its head and made that soft rumbling sound. Hana's eyes filled with tears. "You saved me, all of you. I do not even know how, but you saved me." Tay stood up slowly, making sure she could see him. Her eyes widened at the sight of a 2-meter-tall Vexian warrior. "Do not be afraid," he said in carefully practiced human language. "You are safe, on Vexian Station. We found you, brought you here, fixed injuries." Hana stared at him, then at the cubs, then back at him. "You let them come with me?" "They would not allow separation," Tay explained. "Very protective, very loyal, never seen before." "I don't understand," Hana said. "Why would they protect me? I'm nobody. Just a supply pilot." Tay moved closer, careful not to startle the cubs. "You are human," he said simply. "Humans have gift, make bonds, make family, even with creatures who should be enemies." He gestured to the cubs. "These young ones, they chose you, not because of rank or power, because of something inside you, something humans have, ability to be pack, to be trusted, to be loved." Hana looked at the cubs, her expression full of wonder. "I thought I was going to die in that cave. I was so scared. Then they appeared and they just took care of me, like I was one of them." "Because you are," Tay said. Now, forever. They bonded, cannot be undone. You are their pack. What does that mean? Hana asked. For them? For me? Tay considered his answer carefully. Means change, for everyone. You showed us something new. Something important, bridge between species, understanding between different minds. This is beginning, not end. Outside the window, the three adult Veka still waited. When they saw Hana awake and moving, they made deep rumbling sounds, not threatening, approving. They are the parents, Tay explained. They approve of Cub's choice. They accept you too. Hana laughed weakly. This is insane. I crashed on a hostile planet, got adopted by alien predators, and now I am part of their family. This cannot be real. Very real, Tay assured her. And very important. You have started something. Alliance between Vexians and humans was weak, political, no trust. But this, he gestured to the cubs, this is real connection, real family. Cannot be broken by politics or fear. The largest cub moved closer to Hana and placed its head on her chest, right over her heart, the same place the smallest one had stayed during the worst of her fever, listening to her heartbeat, making sure she was alive. Hana's hand stroked its head. What happens now? Now, you recover, heal, spend time with your pack. Then we learn. Learn how you did this. Learn how to teach others. Maybe humans and Vexians can build real alliance, not just words on paper, real connection between peoples. Because of 3 cubs and 1 lucky crash? Hana said skeptically. Yes, Tay replied seriously. Great changes start small. 1 human, 3 cubs, 1 moment of trust in dark cave. From this, anything is possible. He moved toward the door, then paused. I promised them I would keep you safe. I keep promises. You have protection now. Not just cubs, not just adults, all of us. You are bridge. You are hope. We will guard you. After he left, Hana lay back against the pillows. The 3 cubs settled more comfortably around her. Outside the window, stars stretched endlessly. She was far from home, surrounded by aliens, connected to predators who should have killed her. But as she felt the warmth of the cubs, heard their soft breathing, and saw the devotion in their eyes, she realized something. She was exactly where she belonged. This was family. Strange, impossible, wonderful family. And maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something that would bring entire civilizations together. One bond at a time.